Hello and welcome to Upload,
a podcast by those who upload for those who want to.
or who already do.
And anyone else for that matter.
My name is Lionheart and I've been creating content for over a decade.
And my name's Midgeman and I've been trying to create content for almost a decade.
Together with some of our friends and fellow content creators, we're going to be exploring the great big world of content creation.
We'll be looking into the serious topics that face content creators today.
Because if someone said that to me like in person, or said that kind of stuff to me, you know, IRL, I wouldn't take it. So why would I take it like online? Why would I hide aspects of sort of my identity?
As well as some less serious topics.
I've been blindsided by the fact that one of your old live streams is called Suck My Missile for like the last
Sorry,
10
what?
minutes.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy another episode of Upload. Welcome to Upload, the content creator podcast for those who upload and for those who want to and everyone in between. I'm Lionheart.
And I'm Midgeman.
Before we get into today's episode, remember to like, subscribe, review, rate, and turn on any auto downloaders. What the hell are those? I still don't know. On whatever platform you're coming from. And you can also reach out to the podcast either in the YouTube comment section or via our email, hello@uploadpodcast.co.uk. Midge, what are we doing today?
Well, first of all, I'm going to explain what an auto downloader is.
Yes.
It's basically
every week I've been like, what is that? It sounds like a transformer.
on a podcasting app, certain ones, if you have an auto downloader ticked on, it means when a new episode comes in, it will save to your device. So you can,
So it's like subscribing to an RSS feed or something like that.
yeah, kind of it was kind of the RSS feed, but it's also telling you rather than just being notifications, it's like it will appear on your phone and it will like be able to be played or whatever device you listen through.
Today I learned.
Today you learn. Now, we're probably only doing one recording today because we've been doing some other stuff, some admin, because this might be the final podcast before BroHeart, I think the name you came up with
yeah,
was.
that's what I settled on stream yesterday. Yeah, Cub Heart number 2, codename BroHeart. Mainly so that I can be like, here's Cub Heart and here's BroHeart because he'll be little bro to Cub Heart. So I was like, that works. And it's a lot nicer than calling him Spare Heart. which if you've never played Crusader Kings, you probably won't necessarily appreciate that. You're probably thinking, that's really cold and cruel. But the idea is that kind of, I mean, not even just a Crusader Kings thing, but quite historically, heir and a spare is what most lords, rulers, or just medieval folk of a degree would try and achieve. You know, have your primary heir, but if something happens, because, you know, especially in medieval times, there'd be plague and there'd be not good healthcare, things could happen, plus wars and arrows and stray swords and things like that. You could probably end up losing an heir. So you'd probably want to have a spare. I mean, to be honest, you probably want a few spares, to be perfectly honest. Maybe sprinkle in a few bastards as well, because nobody can keep it in their pants in the medieval ages. So yeah, that's he's unofficial spare because I'm not saying that he's the backup child.
Oh no! I just hope your wife never listens to this podcast.
Yeah, it's hi babe. Yeah, BroHeart, when you're watching this later on, because obviously you're going to be like, yeah, my dad was super cool. Look at him doing a podcast. He's not having like an early midlife crisis or anything like that. You know, that's not what they do. Hi, bud. Yeah, no, I love you just as equally as your brother. Unless you're an absolute...
Possibly more.
Possibly more. Yeah, possibly more. He might be a... You know, whichever one of you annoys me less, basically, at this point.
Whichever one I'm with at the time, that's the one I love.
You're my favourite.
Yeah.
You're my favourite. But yes, Cub Heart and BroHeart, fully established. This will be our last recording, most likely, unless BroHeart, you're late. In which case you take after your mother. I don't know why I keep putting shots for assassination targets on my own head. I do this in real life as well. I think it's a coping mechanism for stress. I had a friend around the other night and they were like, why are you saying, like, you know, your wife's right there. And I mean, okay, she can't move that quickly right now because she's 37 weeks pregnant, but also she can still, you know, she can still kill me later, right?
It's like a horror game where you're trying to kite the boss that's ever so slightly slower than you whilst you do other tasks, but they'll still jump scare you at one point.
I think it, yeah, I think it's some sort of messed up coping mechanism of like, just make the problem worse. Poke the bear. It's fun. It's really not fun to poke a very hormonal pregnant mama bear.
But the reason we say this, and the reason I wanted to bring that up as a interesting topic, at least for part of the episode, is it means for you, and this is something I think a lot of us do when big events happen in our lives as content creators, this is a thing that a lot of people also don't see behind the scenes, is that when something big is happening, you have to do so much extra work and prep. And I mean, it's the whole reason we've been planning this podcast it to be happening in the background. First up, how stressed are you to create content right now? Because also, not only are you expecting another kid, but Manor Lords has just done some awesome stuff, and also we'll also talk about that in a moment, but you're prepping for content around that because there's a hype around it. You've got Thrones Decay coming up at the time of recording. There's a lot of big progress in the genre you work in. That's stressful, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the way I'm handling it is that my schedule has basically completely gone out the window for the last like week and a half, because normally I try and do like 3 episodes of like 3 or 4 of my series, and then I have like another 1 or 2 that I try and do either daily uploads of. At the moment it's Manor Lords, and then Crusader Kings, which is probably like 4 or 5 a week depending on how often I've streamed it, to then edit up and make video content from it. Yeah, the past week or so, I was just like, you know, I know. The thing is, it's pretty much impossible for me, because some people might be like, oh, if you prep some videos for while you go on paternity leave once the baby comes. It's like, well, one, I don't actually have a solid fit. You have a due date, but they don't really appreciate the finesse of schedules and being on time yet. They haven't worked that out. Basically, at any point now, baby could come, realistically. The due date is specifically the 9th of May, and we have a hard stop of an induction booked in on the 11th. Probably soon after that is when baby will appear one way or another. So some people might be like, oh, are you going to spend some time in between that prepping 20 videos or something like that to go out in the 2 weeks or so that you then take off? It's just not possible, because I'm already maxed out and then some in my current schedule. I cannot create more time. Like, when I figure that out though, oh boy, am I going to make some money?
Yeah, there's 2 things in life that are finite resources that people need to live at all times, and that is time and money.
Yes.
One of those you do not know how much you have of at any given moment, which means you have to play everything by. I mean, you could schedule as much as you need to, but like you say, you are on a time crunch with an end timer that you don't really know the end time to.
Normally, I get into a habit where I start. I'm just checking I'm not showing anything like important, but no. I will sometimes do this on a week and just scribble down roughly what videos I'm planning to do, or what videos I'm planning to release on set days, and not necessarily the videos I will make that day, but the ones I'm planning to release, so that I know to look at my recording folder and go, which ones have I edited, which ones haven't I done. I actually used to try and do it in spreadsheets, and I found that far too restrictive, weirdly. I think it's sometimes when it comes down to some people are better at note taking on paper and pen, and some people like doing it on the computer and stuff like that. Weirdly, I'm best served when I just scribble it down and keep a scrawled up bit of paper on the side of my desk, and I can just check it and I'm like, yeah, back in. That's good. Having something like properly, officially, you know, in a nice spreadsheet wouldn't actually work for me, despite that probably being the far more visually appealing and more satisfying thing to regularly set up. Probably if I did have like a dedicated team of people, that would probably be something I would do just to keep track of what everyone's working on. But I would probably still have my scrawled scribbles all around my desk going, I'm doing this and that and everything else. Descending into kind of schedule chaos for the last week or so that I now plan to just roll through for the next 2 or 3 weeks until the baby comes. Actually, that's taken a lot of the stress off, actually, because I'm just like, I know that I'm delivering Manor Lords content daily. I know that from the 23rd of April, I'm going to be starting 2 new Warhammer 3 series. And then I'm basically, in my mind, I've essentially sort of said to all the other series that I still have going, I'm not just going to end them, because that's just not how I deal with content. I want to get them to a solid conclusion. I'm just going to aim to have 1 episode of each of the other series a week in between now and then. Most of them I stream anyway, so it's easy just to tack on like an hour at the end of a stream of something else. Be like, right, we're just going to do an hour of this, so we've got an episode for the week of that one. Kick it out. Thankfully, like 2 of my series are pretty much done. Like they need 1 or 2 more episodes and then they're done. And then there's another one that depends on how badly I lose, because I'm losing a campaign right now and it's slowly collapsing.
You're losing your Satsuma Shogun.
It is,
2.
yeah.
You're about to finish your A Game of Thrones Banner Lords.
And I've literally got 1 final stream of my Mother or Stankia campaign, which is perfect timing because the new Warhammer 3 DLC is out next week. So I won't actually finish that before the new content comes out, but within next week I'll be like, oh, by the way, seeing as we've just done some new content, we're just going to go back and finish this other campaign at the same time. So essentially I know I've got 3 series that are going to clear fairly soon, maybe before the baby comes. Probably not though, because we're on reduced time right now. And then I've got a Napoleon series which is still running, and it's a slow grind. You know, the views have dropped off, but it's fine. I'm happy with that. What I'll probably start doing is just making even longer streams and recordings from that and uploading. Like, what I tend to do when they get to this point, I've kind of figured out more recently in the last couple of years, is that it's better to then just drop down to like 1 or 2 uploads a week, but make them 1.5 to 2 hours long, even as just big videos, because I know they're going to perform badly. So I'd rather have one bigger video perform badly than 2 or 3 shorter ones perform badly. And also I think for those then that are waiting for that campaign, go, oh, well, I'm going to get 2 hours of this thing this week, which I can binge or I can watch in chunks. So that seems to be the way I've adapted to how the formats change and how, you know, it drops off. But, you know, for the 3,000 odd people that, you know, still tune into that and want to watch it, I'm obviously very happy to cater to that. And I still don't want to just say, no, series is done. I want to get it to a conclusional point. With the more recent Warhammer stuff, where you've got Immortal Empires, this absolutely massive mega campaign map with, like, I think there's 270 odd factions at the start of any campaign. Massive campaign map stitching 3 games essentially together. With that, I've had to start imposing separate limited objectives that I go, if I hit this one, I can end the campaign. If I need to move on to something else, if people are still enjoying it, I'll go to the next set of objectives. And if people are still really enjoying it after that, we'll go to this near infinite objective, which is, you know, keep on playing nearly forever until it comes to a conclusion. So that helps me structure content. But yeah, we're just living in schedule chaos, which I imagine some creators will look at that and go, no, need format, need something. And someone might say, surely now is the point where you need even more schedule because you've got even less time potentially. And I'm like, you know what? There's nothing I can do. There is no way I can make more time to prep content. So basically, whenever baby comes, hopefully I'll have a few streams that I've just done that week that I haven't got around to editing. And my plan in a perfect world is that hopefully I'll have enough content for 6 videos for the 2 weeks that I take off of paternity leave. So I can do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday upload of 1 video on those days to get me through. And that'll be fine to just keep the channel ticking over comfortably. And then I'll come back for 2 half weeks and get back up to probably 1 video a day, Monday to Sunday. And then I'll be back full time after kind of four interrupted weeks as such.
The really other interesting thing about YouTube is, I think this only works with YouTube. It does not work with streaming, because people do definitely notice more when streaming, because YouTube is one of those platforms where you can schedule and videos are then also up forever. Half a year down the line, no one's even going to know that you took that time off. Really, it's only going to be like a thing for you, but at the same time, it's still very important for you to cover that content at that point.
That's why I'm literally like, please don't come until after the 23rd when I've at least done like the starting episode. Although that would probably be worse, to be honest, if it came shortly after and I just started 2 new series, because then I'd lose all the momentum. But equally, if that's what happens, I'm just going to have to accept that and rebuild afterwards. It's going to be a future me problem. I'm not going to be willing to want to work during those first 2 weeks. I need that time to support my family. I wouldn't be able to get into the headspace to work in that time anyway. And I think it is so important to take that time, like 100%. That's why Twitch desperately needed, because I don't know if they're past it now, being able to actually do anything to it, but they needed to have a dedicated, decent VOD space to support channels when you're offline. Because especially on like Twitch and on most streaming sites, to be fair, apart from YouTube, because it started as a video platform, then moved into live stream. So it's got the perfect fallback, because essentially when you're not live on Twitch or most streaming sites, your channel is dead. Your content is dead. There is no discoverability. There is nothing pushing it. Maybe over the coming years, if they keep investing into it, they'll find a way to do it. I mean, right now, I think they're just obviously trying to focus on pushing that short form content, which gets really good views. But the thing with short form, I would say, like with that level of short form, it is even harder to get any kind of conversion over to your main content pages and spread off it. It's good for view boosting, and sometimes I've released a short and gone, oh, I feel better about having a bad month in views, but then I'm like, got to remember, actually, you're still having a bad month with your regular content. It's only because you released a couple of kind of hypey or memey shorts that have actually hit the right bits and they've boosted everything up. Shorts seemingly do have often a fairly good way on YouTube, at least, of driving more subscribers to new channels, because people kind of see it quite quickly and they go, sub. But then it's still kind of like trickle down economics almost of like how many of those do you then capture into the main, longer format content, which is where on YouTube you make your bread and butter money basically with the ads playing across that stuff. But I think the general premise with the YouTube is that if you do enough of that, it doesn't matter even if it's only a 0.5 conversion ratio. You do that enough with enough views and enough people, it eventually starts gathering mass. And then over time, you're going to get reoccurring or returning conversions of people going, well, I did sub to that guy for his shorts. I'll check out that one. Oh, that's a good series. Oh, he's got 40 video. Okay, yeah, I'll sit and watch some of these. And that's how it builds, I mean, it's interesting. Actually, I literally was just looking through comments before we started today, and I had a comment from someone saying like, I haven't watched you since 2013. Great to see you still going. I'm going to be back watching this series. And it's like, so not to say that you should put a lot of emphasis on capturing those viewers 10 years later, but potentially people will come back. Yeah, keeping that consistency and everything else. There is no good way, I think, of really kind of prepping for an absence of creating content, because either you can try and prep stuff beforehand if you've got the time capability, and if so, that's great on something like YouTube, but there's just nothing you can do on Twitch aside from getting your friends to stream on your channel instead. Even then, you're probably gonna have slightly less, because a lot of people are gonna be like, that's not Lionheart, I'm on the wrong channel. Or like, in the nicest way possible, they'll be like, I'm here to watch this specific dude play or this specific person play, not interested in seeing his mate play Farming Sim. Sorry, Moosey. You should do, though. You should tune in for the Farmer Moosey streams. They're great.
Well, also, that's the thing. We're launching this podcast. The first episode is going to be live on your channel. It's going to be
exactly.
At least that will have you in it, I think.
I'll be there.
But for me, like, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to manage that stream. And it's going to be one of those things of like, one, it's to help your channel like have that thing. But also, I'm sat there like, I need to rest expectations of most people that are like diehard to your community will also know that you're not actually there. You're hitting different markers. And I think you're right. I don't think you can ever truly prep. Some people need to, though. And if you are someone who is looking to be a content creator and scheduling is your life, then do it. Absolutely do it. I used to be very much like Lion, and I used to write everything down on a bit of paper. I probably should go back to that for my day-to-day management. I've tried to move it all digitally because now I'm working with clients. A lot of it's meetings based. And then also I've got Dan and Foxy, my lovely editing team. I have this production calendar. Actually, Dan, feel free to, for the podcast viewers, show people how we do the production calendar. And that's because I have multiple channels, multiple things where we need to just mark out who is doing what on this. Like, who is the editor for this bit? Who is the editor for that bit? At the moment, the entire production calendar is just Foxy because like Dan is heavily deep into client work that has been going on since like November at this point. And I am both helming, doing a lot for this, but also just trying to get content out on my own. And this is something I personally find is I would love to be able to prep for my own channels more than I already do. Like sometimes I'll get ahead of the game, but now
that's a really impressive calendar. I like it.
It's
nice.
It's a really this is a really good thing. And in fact, I really should do some prep work to get us like some community based things for when this launches out. Like this whole. If we have a Discord community,
you got checkboxes.
Yeah, checkboxes. We've got so also the formats we have.
That's
drop
really
downs.
nice.
We also have which channel it goes on is a drop down. The status will drop down. It's really good, and this is
nice.
Great for team management. If I was just working on my own, still, this would be post-it notes attached to a book, most likely.
I've got so many notepads that I bought from shops or like little gifs of stuff that I've gone through the first like 10 pages of each of them and then I've obviously forgotten about them or left them somewhere, and I've got like the first scribbles of like new plans of schedules or content or stuff like that. Oh, that's solid.
So,
you finished one. Yeah,
so
I've
this
never
is
done
the
that.
second one I finished. This is how I used to do content creation back. This was when I was doing Let's Plays and everything. I used to have a notepad on my At first, I had a diary on my thing, and I finished that up. And then this was my second one. This is a paper chase, just empty sketchbook drawing.
Nice.
Book. And you'll also notice another thing that I do is I scribble doodle. So normally for me to be able to listen, I have to be doing something else. Otherwise, I don't take in information. That's just my information.
We can't show you what he does while the podcast is happening, though.
Exactly. It's. I mean, everyone can see if you're watching on Spotify or on YouTube. Make sure you're over there. Plug. But some of this is like D&D notes. So I split half of this book to be D&D notes in the end because this is when I was starting D&D as content. But then other things is like, I just have like naming lists for characters, and I've got, okay, this is the episode I'm working on. A lot of this is like, for example, this is an old one. This is back when I was doing Let's Plays here. So this is also in my own freehand. This isn't going to show on the camera.
Lord of the Rings 9. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So this was Lord of the Rings RimWorld. Cultist was Cultist Simulator, I think. Emu is Europa Universalis 4 because that I was doing an Emu Empire thing, and I think Med is, I think that was CK2. So like, yeah, because this was ages ago. Having little notes is so key sometimes.
I need it to plan out stuff. I mean, yeah, these are my little bits that I have now. It's self-censoring for me on the blur.
I love that.
It's fine. You can't read it. It's got my world domination plans. I wrote myself like a little checklist of like key bits I needed to read on a Crusader Kings sponsored thing. But my camera's doing too good of a job of censoring it all out. I think it gets it out of your head as well, like trying to unload some of the burdens of like just the creative process. And you're like, if I can get this down, it's kind of like I've put all that stuff to one side. Like I know I need to do it and it's just not in here. I don't know. I'm thinking about how this is going to look in the edit later, and I need to say things a certain way or not spend too long on this certain thing. Like that's probably one of the most complicated things of how my brain works when I'm streaming now, because I'm not just streaming. I'm streaming and I'm also thinking about how this is going to look or sound or be in the recorded version that's happening at the same time, but without like the face cam and without the alert. So I know that when I react to an alert that's come in, I need to try and like, I don't know, keep the game still or pause it. Sometimes I just do a hard pause and like hit escape, so it brings up a menu, so it's a very easy cut for me to make and just do. Or in something like Manor Lords, go cinematic mode, look at the village again and thank someone for their subs or something like that. You're also then clocking a question that's come in from chat, and I'm thinking I can't just answer that. I need to rephrase the question so that people on the video here, if it's a question that I think, you know, is going to benefit the commentary and the gameplay and what have you. So it'd be like someone saying, oh, what have we done with goats? I haven't used any goats yet. Good question. Right, let's go take a look at these goats over here. It's just something like that. And then you're still managing chat, and then you're still trying to focus on the gameplay. And I think this is what some people always say, like, oh, why are content creators actually sometimes not that good at the game? It's because we're doing like 5 things at once. That's why. How are content creators so blind that they miss this tooltip like 50 times? It's like, and they're screaming in the comments going like, I'm screaming at my screen. I didn't, like, how has he not seen that? I'm like, because I've lost all peripheral vision. I'm just so zoned in on this one thing that I'm trying to do or get out. It is a mind jumble and a half. Typically when someone plays a game, they're just sitting back, playing it. That's it. That's all you're doing. You have 100% of your focus on what you're doing. If you don't, then that's kind of like, that's on you. You obviously got distracted by something else. But like we're processing like, or trying to process so much, often failing at it, as is the nature of it all. I feel like every part of this, no matter how prepped you are, even if you have a gorgeous spreadsheet, which now the thing is, I'm looking at that going like, oh, that's a really good idea. I'll set one up, I'll do it for like a week, and then I'll forget about it.
There is one for the podcast episodes, so at least you get like to live vicariously through that.
I will. I'll just look at that and be like, it's beautiful.
I think that's a huge thing as well, because content creation is so much. If you are looking to get into content creation, you will have this same theory, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed by the fact that, oh, I now have to read chat. I now have to do this. I now have to, if you're doing multiple formats like you are, it's like, I have to make sure that this looks good in the edit. And there's you will find a methodology that works for you. But there's something that I also want to touch on, because obviously you're juggling all these things. You've got that added stress of that time right now. It's something we were talking about right before this episode started recording. You're also you work heavily with sponsors. You're having to warn them that you're going to be going for a little while. You're trying to make sure that you can cover their content for a while. There's new games coming out. Like, I think you were saying this slightly before the podcast. that, or we said it in the podcast and I've already jumbled background. Again, managing loads of things in your head. I was doing some admin halfway through this, trying to do a podcast episode. Content creators will always find themselves doing multiple things at once. You were saying that you had to let a sponsor know that, like, hey, I will be doing this, but also you might get a message.
Yeah, I've actually, you know what? Actually, it reminds me, I had two games coming through. I actually still need to email them and say, hey, I might actually not be able to do this sponsorship. Is for Stronghold Definitive Edition, Firefly Studios. Absolutely beautiful UK game studio. Yeah, it's just updating their original Stronghold title. It's a castle builder, and there's military aspects to it as well. It's so satisfying.
I think Stronghold is the game that out of every game that I've played ever in my life, I think that is the one that I have a lot of formative memories around. So yeah. So I need to email them back because they were like, we've got the embargo for the 30th of April. Now they've confirmed it all basically, and they've sent me a key for it and sort of said, have the video ready for the 30th. That's all good. So I'm now like, right, schedule's busy at the moment. I'm aiming to get the video for you guys done on the 25th so I can get it to you guys just to check, review it. I mean, they probably won't want anything changed because they just want an hour of me playing through some of them, probably the first mission, to be fair, and probably failing horribly at it. So I'll send that to them on the 25th. Hopefully it's all good, ready for the 30th. But there might be a caveat that, I don't know, over this weekend, Lionheart goes into labour and all the plans for stuff just go out the window. So I'm gonna get an email off to them today. But I also actually had another sponsor, and actually I've found this a few times actually, which is I don't know, it's quite a satisfying thing to get an email when you have an agency or a developer or publisher come to you. They actually have said they are willing to move their campaign deadline, extend it a bit for me, so because they really want me as part of it to check out an upcoming game. They wanted the video dropping on the 15th of May, and I was like, there is no way. And they're like, keys are coming early May, and I was like, that's just a write-off for me. The due date's the 9th. Even if I get it before, I'm going to be so busy attempting somehow maybe some prep, or like I said, I'm not doing any prep. I'm just going to stream and record as normal and just hope that I've got enough from that to carry me forward, because there's no other way I can do it. It's just, it's just not going to work any other way. Because if I started prepping now, I'd have to cut back on some of the stuff I'm doing now. And it's better that I just focus and go full steam now. And then if we have 2 weeks off, as I said, someone in 6 months' time isn't going to know. I actually looked at my analytics from when Cubheart was born, and you can see the views came down and earnings were down for a little bit, but everything just came back up after a couple of weeks. Okay, I had to work a bit harder and to reestablish that, and it probably then took a further 2 or 3 weeks to get the algorithm going again, all cylinders firing and everything else. But it came back. It all fired up again. So I would love to check out this game. I'd love to do a sponsor video. Obviously, it's a game I'm interested in. They were paying a decent fee. They came back and went, actually, we've spoken to the publisher. They're happy to extend the campaign deadline up to the 30th of May. Hopefully, I said, okay, I mean, that's still not a guarantee that I'll be able to do a bit of content for that, because I might still be on paternity leave or whatever. But I said, I will do my best and I will keep you guys updated. And they're like, that's fine. If you get a chance to do it, great. We'll honor the agreement. If not, no worries. All good. Some sponsoring agencies, if they've got very limited budget, they'll want to find a creator that can obviously 100% commit to it. But, things come up. Life happens. There's only one agency that I've ever had a really bad experience, and they just messed around with not paying on time. And then they'd lowballed anyway, but it was a game I was passionate about. So I was like, it's fine, I'll do it anyway. And I had the agency come up once more. I've not worked with them for like 7 or 8 years. And they came back up about a year ago with another sponsor, basically said, we're going to move all of our in-house partnership stuff to this agency to handle. They were just awful, and I ended up having to just constantly message the actual company directly saying, look, can you speak, because I'm not getting anywhere, and they're just sending me all this stuff. I'm having to fill in 5 more forms for just getting all this through, to set up now to payment for them. Why is it not coming direct through you? Like, what's going on? It was a mess. And I mean, that actually, the partnership with that company ended like 3 months later anyway. So I was just like, if I ever got like a game or a product come through that company that I'd probably just go to the company or the publisher or the developer directly and say, look, I've had it from them, but I've had terrible experiences working with them. I'm more than happy to work directly with you. I'll happily get something drafted or whatever, but I'm not working through them with you guys. Even if it means that they go, fine, we won't work with you. I'll be like, okay, fine. There's a lot to be said about that. And there's a big thing this is going to be a bit of a tangent because this is a really interesting point and I want to cover it properly, but creators talk. That's a huge thing that I think companies and just anyone that looks to be content creating, it's a world where people talk. So impressions are key. I like the fact that you said that the company stopped working with that company that you had issues with, because I thought there's a realization there, especially if you get into a level of a content creator such as yourself, where you are very established, you're doing it. You're doing it full time. You're doing it as a business. Like, there becomes this relationship. It's a two-way street. Like, I know for a fact that there are content creators who are blacklisted by certain companies. Other companies will hear that they're blacklisted by certain companies and just preemptively blacklist them. Same goes for content creators. They go, these people didn't pay me on time.
I'm going to say, as much as you always hear like developers or publishers sometimes in their influencer teams or whatever going like, not as I don't think it's meant to be as a veiled threat, but they kind of say like, here's the rules that we would like you to adhere to while you're part of this exclusive early access or whatever. Please bear it in mind. Like, obviously, if you don't follow these, we'll remove you from the partnership or the program or whatever. And also, this might have, I don't think I've ever seen anyone where they've stated it in their rules and stuff. But when I've talked to like their managers and stuff, they say, well, obviously, yeah, we do talk with other influence managers at other companies, and like, we'll share lists and, we'll share information across if we've had a really bad experience with a certain creator, because they just want to give you a heads up. Like you would do in any workplace. You'd be like, oh no, don't take on that project from Steve. He's awful. Like he was late. It was messy. He didn't have the calculations. He was over budget. Like, don't do that. You'd have that in any job or industry. You'll have people who'll be like, be wary of that coworker. Like, you're going to be doing most of the heavy lifting or whatever.
I've done it. I've been the person in industry go, look, I know that you're looking to work with this person, but be aware that this piece of content from them came out, or they've done this before, or they've had, like, there are these certain allegations which, as a brand, you might want to. I've also done it for content creators. I've turned around and said, hey, look,
don't touch that. Yeah.
Make sure when you go into this, make sure you get a contract in writing as well, because they may try to change things. Please make sure that you think, and also making sure that content creators talk to each other as well in certain regards. Just making sure that like everyone's getting a fair shake. Certain creators are very private about how they work with companies, clients, like what their rates are, what their thing are, and some are very open. And it's okay to be either, but I do feel like because how solo you are quite often as a content creator, you do need that extra. I feel like you have to go. Like
genuinely, it would benefit all creators to be a little bit more open sometimes. Like, you don't need to get fully into, we're not asking you to show us your analytic page, but sometimes it would be a bit more helpful, especially when people are trying to like gauge rates and things like that, or what is a fair deal and things like that. I don't think it really hurts. Like, and also, if you've got a killer deal and you've been paid like a silly amount of money, and even if you think, I don't know why they paid me that much, but I got a really good deal, don't boast about it, but you can have a humble brag. You've earned it and you've worked for it through either, your personality, your work ethic, the content that you're creating. That obviously the company was happy to do that. I had loads of back and forth with Lenovo Legion when I was sponsored by them about stuff, and when we switched from our first year to our second year, I quite openly said, look, I'm looking for probably about $6,000 more, to be honest, if we renew this for another year. And I said, I have had other ops from other companies and competitors come on in. So are you? And they were like, no, we're really happy with you. We think you're a solid ambassador for the brand and everything else. The partnership's going really well. They increased the fee. We're coming into that initially when I was doing the first year stuff. I was messaging around some of my friends that aren't in the creator space, but going like, do you think this is a good amount to ask for? Do you think I'm asking for too much? Because you have no idea really of what to ask for. I actually reached out and messaged someone that was part of they were a YouTuber and a Twitch streamer, and they've now moved into just working. They've made their own creative agency. And I actually messaged him and I said, look, any chance you could give me a rough idea on whether I'm asking too much for this deal with this company? And they came back and they were like, yeah, dude, like, more than happy to. Like, I think most people very like within our space are very happy to give some guidelines, give some advice about it. One thing I will say about like creators in terms of like getting blacklisting, at least from my experience, I think some have a perception that they get blacklisted incorrectly because they're critical of a game. At least from my experience of the studios that I've worked with, and when I've seen one or two other creators end up getting blacklisted or something like that, it's not because they're critical of the game, which is obviously what their audience perceived it is. They're like, oh, you're critical of the game, or you gave it a bad review, so they're not going to work with you again. Every time I've been within one of those partnerships, the studios involved are always like, no, we're not going to stop you from being critical or highlighting negative things or being negative. It's often, and sometimes it's not intentional, and sometimes it is, they just go too far, the creator goes too far. It's when they make it personal and they start attacking staff, or just, and it's like, well, if you did that in any other space, like you could say, I'm sorry, but that work isn't good. That's bad work. And then if you went, it's because Steve, you're a lazy, good for nothing mother, because there is no like agency liaison HR to manage all those conversations, the company just has, well, we're not going to stand for that. It's like when you more and more you see in like shops, like any abuse towards our staff, you'll be kicked out. And that's basically pretty much, at least from my experience, what most companies have. I think it's a reality check for a lot of them. And maybe just, I don't know, there are some creators that I've seen grow and their personalities have changed, but they've developed and they've actually come to an understanding where they're like, you know what? No, it was me. Not necessarily solely the problem. And there's certainly times where there's been a lot of miscommunication and people have taken things the wrong way. And that's what leads to someone getting blacklisted and mistakes made or what have you, or certain things being done in a way that, hasty reactions, and it just leads to snap decisions, and they're ultimately the wrong call. But, the damage is done by that point. There are some creators out there that I think maybe are just so almost like tunneled in that they're like, no, it must be because I was negative about this, and this. And it's like, it was actually because you then went on to say this awful thing, or you said something else.
It's actually something I've noticed myself doing quite a lot more recently, is not chasing early accesses. That's a big thing as a content creator. I remember in my journey, and it caused me a lot of stress, especially when I was really small. And when because I did get early access to Paradox games very, very early on. The institution's very different now, because there's like, this was way before key sites were a thing, which like directly pull your metric, and you can't even apply to certain things these days without having a certain viewer watch time hour or whatever, because of like programs like Woovit and stuff. Content creators, though, if you are looking to get keys, check out places like Woovit, Keymailer, just if you want to get your foot in the door. Back in the day, it was just emails, and if you were polite and wrote a good email, you could quite often get in. But I think for me, that added a lot of added pressure, especially when I was planning content, doing new series of like, sometimes embargoes, especially when you're smaller, you don't get the luxury of having a month to play with the game. You sometimes get a weekend, and you have to throw everything out the window if you want to chase the embargo. But then nowadays, there's so many creators, there's so many people doing their own unique spin, there's so many people that have had also a different amount of time than you, that I think for a smaller creator, you should never chase an embargo anymore. You should never try to get early access. By all means, try to get the key, but don't restrict yourself to making sure you hit the embargo.
Focus on making the content you want to make, rather than just kicking out a video out the door at the same time the embargo drops, because the major traffic is going to go to the bigger creators, the established ones.
Yeah, it would be like me trying to do a Total War episode, releasing at the same time as you. Would never do the same. And I think it's far better for you to sit down and plan something truly unique, really think about your thumbnail, and not aim for the embargo time. But also, in terms of embargoes, please, 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 content creators, I've seen this be a whisper a lot, and a lot of people, and it's actually more prolific from dedicated media and PR companies and news people. Do not, for the love of all that is holy, #not sponsored, do not break embargoes.
And stop scheduling live streams before the embargoes on YouTube, because they show up.
Unless it has been absolutely deemed by an influencer manager.
Unless they say you can have premieres ready and live stream scheduled. Like, I think we can probably say this for Manlords. The embargo was very strict, like, because I remember saying, like, can I announce what I'm doing this Friday? And it was like, no, can't announce anything. You can't have anything. So my schedule for the Friday embargo drop was mystery game stream. I mean, obviously, most of my community were like, oh, I bet it's Manlords. Meh. Like, yeah, that's fine. And you can be like, oh, it's totally not Manlords, and you can do that. And I fully understand, bless them, the team at Hooded Horse, their frustration, because like they had some craze saying, hey, we've seen these three go, and it's not people like trying to, like dob in like fellow creators, but they're just like, if these streams or these premieres stay up, other people might release a video early. And in fact, someone for Manlords did release early. I think they probably just scheduled it wrong. They didn't look at the fact. There's always a confusing thing that happens with, especially, it's often sometimes someone in the UK, potentially, because of BST to GMT, and people get confused. They forget the clocks have gone forward or back or whatever. It happens. It's then sometimes a bit of a scramble to be like, can we message that person? Can they take the video down? Oh, they're not responding, you know, and they generally might be busy or out and not looking at their phone. Most of the time, you're not going to have the phone number of a content creator to just give them a call straight away to be like, yo, can you take that video? And you probably got an email or a Twitter or a Discord, and they may not be checking that all the time. And it largely, I think, is a genuine mistake. Although there is one games press site that I swear always freaking leaks stuff.
There are
every time.
It's prolific these days.
But the one thing that frustrates me, I don't know if it frustrates you, if I did that as a creator, I would be kicked out of a program. I'd never get earlier. I'd be blacklisted. I'd never get it again. The press site is the same one 3 or 4 times in a row with like Total War stuff. They do it every single time. They go early, and I'm like, and obviously, you know, Sega or CA or whatever, whoever's making the call, don't care because they care about the press and the traffic. From my perception, it seems like they don't care because it keeps happening.
It has happened with a lot of certain releases, or a lot of screenshots have made it into articles that shouldn't have been there. From what I've heard, whispers in the industry is actually old form media are upset that they do not get the same clicks and view rates as content creators. And that's why some companies have different embargoes for different forms of media these days. And it's actually huge kickback, and it's essentially like a dirty protest for a lot of the time. And it's very frustrating because it's a finite pool for news. Because at the end of the day, content creation is kind of a news format, especially when you're dealing with embargoes.
Yeah, 100%. And it's all an extension of marketing, which is what, you know, press and independent, essentially, it creates like your independent news outlets. If you want to look at it in a more traditional sense, your independent news outlets covering the content, right?
And normally, because they're an older form of media, they're more established. They just kind of get away with a slap on the wrist because honestly, the PR guys, I know they get so upset when it happens as well because they're so frustrated. Because PR people in companies are sat there prepping everything meticulously. And if someone's broken the rules, it does then have a knock-on effect of a content creator might then read the article and go, oh, did I get things wrong? What's going on? Am I allowed to talk about this now?
Oh, quick, I'll release my video. Go. Boom. Yeah.
I've accidentally broken embargo before. I was very, very quick to undo it. But that was because this was working with Paradox, and I'll hopefully talking it with this one. Me, Ben, and another guy, we had a multiplayer series, and we all were like, right, it's 2, right? The embargo release is 2. It's always 2. Paradox always have the embargo at 2 CEST. For some reason, this one had been moved to 6. It was in the email. We just didn't read the email properly because we were also dealing with 3 other embargoes from them at the same time that were at 2.
Yeah, it's when you're overloaded. Yeah.
As well. And so we released it, and then we were like, oh no, we broke embargo. And hilariously, Ben was the only one who got caught. And I say this is hilarious now because Ben actually is a full-time employee at Paradox now. So it really doesn't matter.
So
but
if you
in
break
that regard,
embargo, you get employed?
That's not the thing. But it was one of those things of, as soon as we realized, we privated our videos and re-released them at the time. We emailed the PR guy. It was Troy at the time when Troy Goodfellow was doing a lot of the thing. He's someone I would love to have on this podcast at some point. Troy's been established in the industry for so long. He also runs a really cool podcast about ancient Rome as well, if you're a bit of a history nerd. But I'd love to talk to him about those sort of things, but it's just like, we were like, Troy, we're so sorry. We got the embargo and it was totally fine. That is like genuine. If you as a creator do make a mistake, you are okay to make a mistake, but be careful.
So I think the way CA do them now, and it shows the rise of how much value developers probably see within creators as well. I believe to avoid, you know, these sorts of things is that they say, your embargo will be the same as the press embargo, and that's the only way that we can make it a fair, even playing field for everyone. I think there are still some press sites that still get a little bit earlier because they're like the really big, like the IGNs and the PC gamers and things like that. They manage to get in there with one or two one or two bits beforehand, or they get a little bit of an exclusive breadcrumb here or there to do an announce with, a shared announce or something like that.
Yeah, I actually have a little story on those, actually, just of how hard as well some of the established press and media work in terms of games, because especially so the PDX Con that we met at back in 2018. Do you remember the little lakeside location they sent us to on day one at the end of like the actual press day?
Yeah, the little, kind of like a little cafe thing overlooking.
And there was all the problem where another coaches turned up.
Yes, yeah.
And they had to send everyone to taxi. Well, I ended up in a taxi with 4 people from Eurogamer. And they were physically writing the articles that were due to go out at 10, 11, 12, whenever it's alongside the announcement show releases in the taxi. That is some level of dedication to their job, because obviously it's a job to be there for them. And it's like we'd all just been there having drinks, and some of them had too. But it's one of those things of they had to do their content, so they are a valuable media source. And honestly, I love reading articles.
There's still a completely valid, like, we can work together, not against one another. That's how it should be. Because the thing is, I am in no way looking to compete with, you know, the likes of PC Gamer, IGN, because they're going to do what I would class as something like highly edited short form. I'm just the dude playing through the campaign. You know, they might have a editorial of like, which is like a 10-minute cut down of like 100 turns of something, or the full experience that their reviewer got from playing a bit of content. The only way we're crossing over is that we're covering the same thing, but in very different styles. It's the same way that, you know, one content creator for Total War is going to do things differently to another content creator doing Total War. And the thing is, it even comes down to you're going to play your campaign differently to how I'm going to play my campaign differently.
It's a constant thing in the games industry that normally there is an embargo for viewing. There is an embargo for reviewing. So for example, I'm going to say this with Manor Lords because it's the most recent thing. Currently, we can't publicly review Manor Lords. We can't. I have seen review content come out, and I got very frustrated when I saw people put review content out, which I'm sure Hooded Horse are as well, and also Slavic Magic, who are making the game. I'm sure the developer, they get just as upset that embargoes are being broken, things are being said before the time is right, because again, it's an early access project as well.
I don't know what your perspective actually is on the review embargoes, actually the timings of them, because I know that creators generally hate the fact that the review embargo is often the day before launch, because it doesn't help build any goodwill with your community when you can give, like, most of the time, and especially with like Total War stuff, you can give impressions, you can say things you like, and this is another thing that's caused some friction between creators within the program, like in and out of the program over the years. The outward perception of what the program does to creators. So a lot of people say, oh, you can't say this and this. You can't, like, the only thing we like specifically cannot say until that final review embargo is we cannot give it like a score. We cannot say whether you should buy it or not, and we can't give any kind of firm conclusive statement essentially of our thoughts on the game. But you can say, in Manor Lords for instance, I can say I absolutely love the burgage plots and how you build it out. That is such a genre defining element. It's really good. You know, I absolutely love that about it. Oh, I really dislike the fact that goats don't give enough hides, or the economy's broken and the trade doesn't quite work. But you can say all of that. That's your impressions of it.
But I can't give the definitive statement of this is the game that my childhood dreamed of when I was playing. This is the stronghold that I imagined in my head. This is the one that I slept dreaming of making medieval cities. That is the truth for me. That is how I feel about the game, but I can't. So you have to be very structured. I actually hate that review embargoes and play embargoes are separate, because I agree. I feel like it makes the content you're creating up until that point feel a little
and
less
it just
genuine.
Makes it seem like there is something to hide from the off. Always
seems,
even if it's a perfect game, you can't even say that. You can't even be like, this is the best game ever. You will want to buy it, guys. Like, here's the link, go get it. Or like, it's
what
perfect.
I've noticed people doing surrounding Manor Lords in my chat, because people have been very, very active watching Manor Lords, and I've been loving playing it. But people have been going, when I say I can't say anything, but I'm sure people in chat will give you, because they've been watching for hours now, they can talk to you about it and conversations start. And it's like,
well, it's when people say like, oh, what about the price? And I'm like, well, the price hasn't been made public, but I actually know the price because I've been sent an affiliate key like discount thing. And actually, weirdly, I don't think the price is up there, but it's on their promotional image, so it is out there if people look. But I'm like, I know the price, and I basically what I'm saying is that, knowing the price, I'm very happy with that price for what is on offer in early access, but you need to make your own conclusions. Like, if you fold it back,
I have a default line on that.
Which the thing is, though, there is so many kind of not necessarily ways around it, but essentially with the way that most companies are now, because they do want you to share your impressions, both good and bad, the real thing the review embargo stops you doing is saying, yeah, it's a 10 out of 10, go buy this game. To a large degree, there's some nuances, as you said there, but it's kind of like, well, if that's all that's there, why is it really being held off till the end? And I guess it's all part of the marketing and the point that they want to be able to, just in case it is perceived badly. I mean, I don't know how a company would turn it around like the day before if that's when all the reviews bomb anyway. They'll probably just ignore it and they'll focus on any glimpses of hope and light that come through any other bits of content for it.
Again, it's a holdover from the older media, but internally now it's become a thing of just being able to not have information overload internally is what I've noticed. So
structuring the waves of feedback.
Yeah, so you can get, okay, I can talk to the influencers, and they were like, okay, on Thursday next week we get the actual review scores, and that comes in, and that might affect sentiment. So it's all about managing sentiment quite a lot of the time.
I think though that like firmly we could do with the review embargo being like a week before launch. If you're going to give us access, unless it's access a week before, in which case then I say it should just be, no holds bar. You can show what you want, say what you want. But if you're being given that early access like a couple of weeks out, then I understand that you're going to be like, here's initial coverage and then here's the review embargo. I completely agree with creators as well that share their frustrations, and it's something I still dislike about the way Total War and Creative Assembly do their DLC, well, not DLC, all their embargoes for stuff, is that typically the review embargo, the final review embargo is the day before or a day or two before release. I don't do review videos. I'd share my impressions as I go through a Let's Play. So for me, it doesn't really change it. But because I live stream more, people are constantly saying, oh, do you recommend it? And something like that. I can't recommend it right now. Not that I am saying I don't recommend it, or I can't comment on that. I can give you my impressions. I can tell you certain things I like, certain things I don't like right now. It's up to you to probably look at me, follow my eyes, or look at the eyes, around the eyes, follow what I'm saying, and I think you will probably then gather whether I think it's any good or not. But you have to make your own formative final conclusions yourself on whether you pull that trigger. And if anything, I get probably, for a couple of years now, I'm trying to pull away from that, like, not that I ever really did Gling, like, oh, that gets a Lionheart thumbs up type thing, but like I just share my impressions. It's on you guys. Yes, I will promote my affiliate links if you want to pick it up, but like don't click my links, don't use my codes if you don't want it. If you don't like what you've seen within my content and everything else, don't do it. Don't click it. That's totally fine. It's just an additional way to support me and my content if you've liked what you've seen and you want to, I don't know, maybe it's just I tend to be a bit more optimistic, but I don't think the vast majority of creators are trying to screw you over and deceive you to be like, click my link, buy my thing, give me the commission. It's a great game. It's terrible. It's a great game. It's terrible. Obviously there are some creators out there that do that, and that's awful. They're terrible garbage people. Shouldn't be doing that. The way I think the vast majority of creators structure themselves, if they do have like pre-order links or stuff like that, it's more a case of like, I'm not going to be like, you have to use it, you have to buy it. It's there if you want it, mainly because over the years, I'm sure you find it yourself, people go like, have you got a discount link, anything you know where is a good deal? And I'm going to be like, yeah, it's there if you want it. If you don't want it, don't touch it, like walk away. Especially as well, if you're like, you know what, maybe this bit of content is very polarizing, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. So if you love it, save yourself some money at the same time. If you're maybe then in the middle on the fence, well, here's a discount. If not to incentivize you to buy it, but if you're like, I do kind of want to get it, but I'm not sure it's worth that full price. Like if it was a little bit lower, oh yeah, this guy's got it on sale through his link for a little bit lower. You know what? For that money, I'm happy to go in, try it out, see what I like. Because some people, as much as they try watching streamers and creators videos to try and form their opinion, some people it doesn't just work. It doesn't click. They've actually got to get in there and physically play the stuff to know whether they're going to continue to enjoy it. And obviously, like a lot of people do that within the 2-hour threshold on Steam, where they can then refund it back. But sometimes that isn't anywhere near enough.
On that topic, just on slightly on Steam and sales is one of the biggest things is that I get questions a lot is like with what I do is when's the next sale? There's a big thing that obviously Steam does its big sales. It does a Steam. Games companies are told when, but games companies are under their own embargo to never release Steam sale data. Now, there are Steam API flaws where people can pull when's the next Steam sale, but you're not allowed, if you know the date of a Steam sale, you are not allowed to comment when. And it's the exact same thing, just like that's the games industry's version of what we deal with. Half of my times will be wait for a sale, but also when it's when's the next sale, I have to sit there and go, tomorrow. Just wait for a sale.
Yeah.
Just wait for a sale.
So maybe try the exclamation mark sale command in a bit.
No. Yeah, maybe. But I would just generally say is yes.
Stick to embargoes, people.
Stick to embargoes. And also creators, please also realize that certain creators will have a different embargo to you. It's just the way it works these days.
I do think, and that is frustrating to see, but I do think a little bit should go to influencer managers to make it clear, just to say, because it doesn't take more than an extra line to say, your embargo is here. There will be some creators with different embargoes to you, but this is your embargo that is relevant to you. Please do not release content outside of this for you. If you see other creators doing it, by all means, message us and feel free to check, like, have they gone early or whatever, or, feel free to help us out if you think you've spotted some streams up early that shouldn't be. Typically, any streams that are coming earlier than a general early access embargo are probably sponsored.
Yeah, they have an embedded sponsorship. They've been worked on.
So obviously, to a degree, yes, you're sponsored because you've got a free key. It's a technically hashtag ad and all that. You're getting something for free and what have you. I don't think I've come across any game developer publisher that has ever stipulated on that any additional caveats of we'll give you this key, but you can only say good things. Despite often a lot of community's perception that if you've taken a key, you can only say good things about it. Not the case. Some people be like, you've not said anything bad about it. It's like, I guess for me, there is nothing that I'm really finding that awful. Outside of that, it's usually because you've got, a dedicated, like we've given them the key and we've also paid them 800 quid or whatever, got in your deal to do it early. And I mean, this is still an area that is developing and needs more simple but more straightforward, like labeling and stuff like that of streams and sponsored content and videos and stuff like that, just to make it very clear. YouTube, it is quite useful that there is a little box that you can click that says this is a paid partnership thing. I've actually started doing it for some of my bits where if I have something in early access, I'll actually tick that anyway, just so that nobody can kind of be like, oh, it's, you're sponsored for this. I'm like, well, I'm not, but fine. There's the thing that says up there because yes. And I mean, it will always say at the top of my description, if it doesn't say I've been given a key, then I bought it, or it's a game from like 20 plus years or so ago or whatever. But if it's new content, it will always probably say within the first 2 or 3 lines in the top, thanks to Paradox, thanks to Hooded Horse, thanks to Creative Assembly for the key. So it's all disclosed there nicely. And also on streams, I'll have hashtag sponsored or hashtag ad. I have that on all of my commands now for all my affiliates.
You have more like sponsorship promo-y stuff in your title half the time than your titles.
Yeah. Because I'm just like, I cannot make it any clearer than this. This is an ad. My timer for like Holy, it starts with hashtag ad. Check out Holy. It's just nice and clear. Like some people do it at the end, but then sometimes that gets cut off. So I don't like doing that. I just want to make it up front, because then if anyone wants to, come at me and be like, oh, you're just doing an ad and disguising it. I'm like, I'm really not. Yes, it's an ad, hashtag ad. I'm saying it. I've said hashtag ad like far more times than I should have done by now. Hashtag ad, hashtag sponsor, whatever. I think there was this pushback maybe like 6 or 7 years ago with like, where I think there was a lot more sponsorship injected into like YouTube and stuff. And people were like, oh, hashtag sponsor. No, don't want to watch that. I don't like that. Whereas now I think people kind of understand that is part of the ecosystem of creating content. You're going to have ads, you're going to have a sponsored segment, you're going to have a channel sponsor that's going to regularly play the same ad, or oh look, he has that 10-second little logo pop up at the start of all of his bits, like, this video brought to you by Overclockers UK, bing, or something like that, powered by Lenovo Legion, bing. I mean, I had a whole series actually that I did sponsorship with Asus for a laptop. our Total War campaign, and I made a burning fiery logo effect that came up at the start of every video, and I did my whole intro, and it was like, hello and welcome everyone, Lionheart here with part 7 of my Crone Hellebrand campaign for Total War Warhammer 2. This video is powered by the Asus Zephyrus Duo. Check out the link in the description to find out more, and then I would launch into the rest of the content, and that would always fire up at the start, little fire effect, and it would have the link right at the top. And I had a whole series because that was essentially the deal. I was like, I want a new laptop for conventions and going out and about and having a powerhouse thing that's no compromise. And I saw this laptop with like dual screens and everything, so I reached out to them and I said, look, what can we do? And they were like, well, we don't really have budget for sponsoring a long series. But I was like, well, what if you just gave me the laptop? It's mine to keep. I own it, mine. And instead, I have this logo on every single one of my videos. Like the first part, I said this new series, this new DLC's coming up. If we have it at the first part of it, it's probably going to get like 100,000 views plus easily. I think at the end of it, I sent them analytics for the whole series, for the whole playlist, and it was something like it gained over 1 million views across like 50 odd episodes. They were very happy with that.
That's the best laptop they've ever given away.
That was a big win for them. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm like, if I did that now, I'd be like, that is a really bad deal. Like I should be having the laptop plus a very big fee or a fee per video or certain threshold of views to hash it out with a fairly complex contract to do all that.
That marketing manager just got a raise off of you.
They were like, oh, what's that? We've diversified into a niche genre that we weren't even looking at. You know, that, like it's a big win for them. That was very early on when I was kind of like looking at stuff. I mean, I have 1 or 2 bits now where they're like, can we just do the product for the thing? And unless it's a product that I'm like, oh, that's really cool, I really want it, I'll be like, I'm happy to look at the product. It's more a fact like I've also got to budget in my time it's going to take me to make the content with it. And I've once or twice said I'm like, I wouldn't prefer it, but if you want the product back at the end of it, okay, fine, I'll send it back. But I would insist, if anything, that I get the fee for actually making the content. Most of the time they're like, no, you can keep the product as well, because typically it's marketing spend. They're like, no, we've got that allocated. Whatever. Yeah, we got 100 units to send out. We don't want 100 laptops sat back in the office that we've got to then deal with. If we're on such a tangent, you reel me back in.
It's one of those things of working with ads, working with embargoes, working with all of that is, at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to you need to do what you're only willing to do. And yes, you have to take that kind of sometimes a suboptimal hit.
Yep.
To how you run your channel.
Content first rather than necessarily the timing.
It's also person first.
Yeah.
I think the added stress and the added...
Oh, here we go. We're coming full circle now. Now I see where you're going. Nice. I like it. Yeah, reeling us in.
Added detriment to anything that you're doing, whether you're planning for... if you've got a sponsor deal that's coming up, or of course, work towards the embargo if it's something that you want to do. But if you've just been given a key, but you've got a baby on the way, you need to be able to step back and go, actually, I can't chase this rabbit today. And something I've noticed as a small content creator as well is there will always be a Lionheart. There will always be a Legend of Total War. There will always be a Spiffing Brit. There will always be someone that is bigger than you. And they will always get more views. And they will always hit the mark. And there will be people that always get things slightly earlier than you. If you get a golden moment, sure. But 9 times out of 10...
Don't chase that hypothetical. Yeah.
Not anymore. I think there was a lot more back in the day where you could get a key early and it would like be, okay, that's me made for a month.
The only time I think to tie that all up together to like chase that embargo drop is if you know you've got a really good, unique piece of content and that you want to try and just ride that initial release wave because you know it's so unique and you know it's going to go out at the same time of other content and you want it to just circle round and just, you know, kind of slingshot, catapult your content up there because it will be so standout. That's the time to, and that's smart content creation if you can bring all of that together. But it's also super smart as well to go, if you've built your content a specific way and you do like certain challenges or certain, builds of a game or something like that, it's not actually going to be that detrimental if you miss that embargo drop. First 3 months of this year, aside from some new Crusader Kings 3 DLC, I've been covering all older games or already released games. Nothing has been early access. Nothing has been, new sponsored bits or embargoes or anything like that. It's all been older games coming back, playing new campaigns on the older titles. And I've just done that in such a way. Basically, I've just responded to the trends and the content my community wanted to see and they were most interested in, running some polls, running some community features, and then using that to create hopefully the most engaging new Let's Play series. And it's worked. It's done really well. Yeah, yes, CK3, the new content for that has certainly helped and brought things up. But even that on its own, like I've had new CK3 DLC where I've started a new series with it and it's not done that well. The story and the Let's Play that I've crafted around that, the challenge that I've done around that hasn't been as engaging or interesting as it could have been. And often I find my most engaging series are the ones that I do the sort of second or third wave after new content's come out because I'm more familiar with the content. I've had more time with it. I've looked at what other people are doing and I've gone, nobody's done that yet.
Oh, I can actually mention that on CK3. Do you remember the Legacy of Purger DLC? There was a thing where all the content creators, we all got the keys at the same time, except for a few sponsored people. It was a good 80% of us all accidentally picked the same character to play as our videos. And I run a predominantly CK channel at this point, and I got like 200 views on the video. It was because the market was so flush with people trying to make the Zoroastrian guy powerful again, and it's like one of those things of that's a hit that I've taken, that's hours I'm not getting back.
The thing is, like, there as a creator, like if you're also concerned about who's going to be covering what, it actually then doesn't hurt you to, like, especially if perhaps if you're a bit more of a streamer focused, you still stream the content on the embargo drop, but start your dedicated new series if you're going to do something long format the following day or two once you've seen what everybody else is doing, because then you'll start getting people going like, nobody's covering this guy or nobody's really done this, and instantly boom, you're on a banger and you've had to do no work because people have told you what they want and you've just looked at the available space. So sometimes it is actually worthwhile taking that step back and going,
it's being reactive to the release.
And in fact, I've actually had one or two other creators reach out to me about the new Thrones of Decay stuff. I don't think they'll mind. Go by the name Janet on occasion. They do Let's Plays of Total War content and other strategy games. Reached out to me and was like, just out of interest, who are you planning on playing as? Just because I want to try and avoid a little bit of overlap, because we're in the same, we're different scales of channel sizes, but we're in the same space of doing the very traditional Let's Play format. They didn't say it as such, but you can feel the hesitancy in the conversation of like, I'm not saying you can't play as this faction, but any chance you could tell me who you're going to be so I can try and fit in, or just so we're not completely doubled up. Thing is, there's always going to be overlap when you have very few options. And that's always something that happens with Total War DLC drops or new games, unless they've got hundreds of new factions. There's always going to be a lot of overlap. And then it comes down to, one, the type of content you're doing, either Let's Play or edited format, and also how you play yourself. I immediately said to Janet, I was like, I'm planning on doing Empire and Dwarves. Nurgle is completely off the table for me for now. I'll be doing it in my second or third round. So I'll be very surprised if Janet on occasion isn't covering some Nurgle content. I'm not covering any of the free patch content that's coming alongside it because I don't have time. So I've also said, if you want to be Lionheart safe, Lionheart clear, like something I'm not going to have any, competition with, go with those. And I'm all for doing that with creators as well. Even if we went, I was planning on doing that and that myself, and I'd be like, cool, best of luck. And in some cases, I've had creators like say, I'm going to do those two as well. Is that like, and then they say, is that okay? And I'm like, I don't gatekeep. No, like, I don't have the keys to this. You do what you want to do. And if anything, I'm saying like, if you want, I'll shout out your channel, your Let's Play in mine, you shout out yours in yours, and we have some crossover because, it doesn't hurt. Check out how somebody else is tackling the same challenge, because that's often what people enjoy seeing as well, different strokes.
There's also another thing to be said. This is going to be an interesting one. As another thing that I've started also looking for is when a new DLC comes out for a similar game, going back and covering the game that everyone's just jumped away from.
Yep. Yeah.
This happens a lot with Paradox titles. I've noticed, I've tried this a few times, and some people do this masterfully. Because of the new DLC drop, everyone's just jumped onto CK3, for example. Someone will go around and go, I'm going to make a Victoria 3 video now. The market saturation has just gone all the way down.
I actually remember seeing some channels do fresh CK2 content when CK3 dropped as well.
Oh yeah, no, I gave it a play a little bit,
and it did really well for them because it was such a diff. Like people were like, a lot of the comments were like, oh my god, CK3 is so different, or like the UI improvements are just timing, planning, and all that comes into it as well. And like picking your moment, actually, don't feel necessarily so pressurized by embargoes for certain things and covering it right on day one. Sometimes the best series I've had are actually when either I wasn't around for an embargo, I couldn't make content for it, and I had to do it a few days later, or especially if it's like not many companies do it. If someone does a weekend embargo, I don't work weekends in terms of creating new content. I might quickly edit a video, but that's it. Like I don't work weekends, and I sort of straight up refuse to take sponsored content when it's been like, can you stream on the Sunday or the Saturday? I'm like, nope, don't work them. I'll do it on the Friday or the Monday. That's your options from me, basically.
And chasing those embargoes sometimes is so detrimental to you. Just focus on the content you want to make. If it is an embargoed content, do it. But half the time, if your soul isn't in that piece of content, look for the gap and other things. But I think we are very over time with this episode, so let us round this one out. This has been a nice long one because this is probably the last one we're going to do for a while. But yeah, do you want to round us out for once?
Or do I have a script for that bit? Oh, panic.
No, basically,
I just say. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed another exciting episode of Upload, and we'll be back. Well, hopefully there'll just be another one next week. Let's catch you all again soon. If you've got any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in the podcast, hello@uploadpodcast.co.uk. Oh, I've got like the proud dad smile there from Midge. Has been like, oh, my son, he remembered to plug the email.
Email.
Yes, check us all out on all of our socials, all the places that we are live. Turn on those auto downloaders now that I know what they are. Bing. And we will catch you all again very soon.
We will see you next time we upload.
Ciao for now. So any tool, I think I kind of feel like that is the kind of the next big thing for helping creators really own their data, is saying, well, look, here's a tool that will help you present that in the best possible way so that you don't miss out on any potential opportunities.